Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is indeed Michiel De Smet, working at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation is a foundation with a mission to accelerate a transition to the circular economy. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to give this talk today, and it's great to see the many talks this morning and this afternoon on which I can build, especially Jane's talk on the circular economy. Thinking about packaging, food packaging, plastic packaging, we come across a couple of challenges which we cannot solve with a simple patch. So what I would like to talk about today is system change and how we at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation go about system change in the area of plastic packaging. So in order to do so, we'll have to go back in time. About 3 years ago, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, together with the World Economic Forum and McKinsey Company, started a project called Project Mainstream. Project Mainstream aims to accelerate business-driven innovations and scaling the circular economy. It does so by focusing on what we call systemic stalemates in a global economy. So then we're talking about material flows which are too big or too complex to be overcome by a single organization or a single company. So we're talking about system change. The work we've done together with the World Economic Forum and McKinsey led to a report which was published earlier this year at the World Economic Forum in January. We worked on this together with over 40 companies and municipalities, some of which are in the room today. And it led us to a couple of insights, both on the current state, on a potential future state, and how we can transition from where we are nowadays to a future system. I'll share some of the insights which we found out in the report. First of all, plastic is the workhorse material of our current economy. It has a lot of benefits. It's lightweight, it comes at low cost, it's versatile, it has several functionalities, which partly also explains why the production of plastics boomed in the past 50 years. It increased 20-fold in the last half a century. However, when we look at the system in which plastics operates today and how plastics are designed, we see also a couple of important drawbacks. First of all, and what you're looking at right now is a representation of the current take, make, dispose system in which plastics operates. It's a very archetypically linear system, as we would call it. We see that there's a huge economic loss. So this represents the flow of plastic packaging, and we see that only 14% gets collected for recycling, and only 2% actually is closed-loop recycling, so bottle to bottle. This economic loss is about the size of 80 to 120 billion US dollars annually. So there's definitely worth considering how to capture this value. So that's one, there's an economic loss. Another very important drawback is a set of negative externalities. As you can see, nearly a third, a staggering 32%, leaks after one use cycle into the environment, such as oceans. This would lead in a business as usual scenario to more plastics than fish in the oceans by 2050. If we continue business as usual, we also have a more significant impact on oil consumption for plastic production, as well as a larger share, up to 15% of the carbon budget. And on top of that, obviously, as been discussed today, we've got the topic of substances of concern within plastics. So we looked at the current state, came up with the current picture and the related insights, but we also proposed a new state in line with circular economy principles. We called it quite originally the new plastics economy, and it's based on 3 ambitions. First of all, we want to create an effective after-use economy. That's the cornerstone of the new plastics economy. Ensure that plastics, after it first use, either get reused or recycled, or somehow we can valorize the material value of plastics. Once this one is in place, the second and the third ambition will be easier to accomplish. The second one says drastically reduce the leakage of plastics into the environment, as well as other negative externalities, such as the impact of substances of concern. And then the third one is about decoupling plastics from fossil feedstocks, which again will be much easier to achieve once the first ambition is achieved. So we set out, also we looked into the current system, we've set out an ambition, a target state for plastics economy. The next logical step, obviously, is looking into how can we make this transition happen? How can we shift the current system to a future-proof, effective plastic system? And that's why we launched earlier this year in May, the new Plastics Economy Initiative. It's an initiative that aims to accelerate momentum towards this new plastics economy. The initiative is based on 5 pillars, 5 mutually reinforcing building blocks, which I'm going to go through right now. The first one is a dialogue mechanism. As we've already heard earlier today, in order to shift the system, we need to bring together players from across the value chain. It's not sufficient to focus just on the plastic producers or just focus on the waste managers. We actually need to bring them together. As a side thought, definitely in the case of plastic packaging, it's not sufficient to just focus on the after-use system, on the reprocessing and collecting. It's also very important to start at the beginning of the journey. So focusing on design, what do you put into plastics? How do you design plastic? And does it fit within the broader system? So that's the first pillar. The second one is what we call a global plastics protocol. What we've noticed while writing the report is that there's a huge fragmentation, both on the design side and on the after-use side, so collection, sorting, and reprocessing. To give an example, London, just one city, has more than 20 ways of collecting and sorting plastic packaging. Obviously, if your after-use systems are so fragmented, it's very difficult to reach economies of scale, which are very important in this part of the value chain. Likewise, we could tell a similar story on the design side, where design is usually optimized for functionality rather than fitting within the broader system. Next one is Innovation Moonshot, the third building block of our new Plastics Economy Initiative. We believe that innovation is crucial to get from our current system to the future system. This will underpin some of the transitions we're looking into, whether it's about developing new types of materials which are either biodegradable, fully biodegradable, whether it's about looking into new delivery models where you question how plastic packaging or packaging should be used, or whether it's about reprocessing technologies towards the end of the value chain. We believe that innovation is important, and on top of that innovation, or giving attention to innovation moonshots, can inspire designers, current designers as well as future generations to look into the issue or the challenge posed by plastic packaging. Fourthly is the evidence base. While writing the report, we understood that there's a huge lack of knowledge, both on material flows and the impact of plastic and plastic packaging on society and the economy. Within this work stream, we tried to gather more evidence, practical evidence as well as long-term evidence related to plastic packaging. The first project we're undertaking in this work stream is working together with Plymouth Marine Laboratory on the socio-economic impact of ocean plastics. And then finally, we've got outreach. Given that we're talking about system change and we're talking about plastic packaging, which is a complex and big global value chain, decisions are made in one part of the world, consumption or leakage happens in other parts of the world, and it's a global value chain. It doesn't suffice, as said before, to focus on specific steps of the value chain or just involve certain partners. Outreach, the fifth pillar, aims to involve everyone. Nearly everyone is touched by plastics on a daily basis, so it does make sense to involve the wider public, to involve the NGO community, to involve academic experts. On top of that, we also believe that policymakers and designers can play a very important role in this decision, so we also connect with them under this umbrella. So here we've got them, all 5. They look like 5 different work streams. In reality, they're intertwined. But we believe that those different angles, those 5 angles, are fundamental to shift from the current take, make, dispose system to future-proof, effective system in line with circular economy principles. As said before, we're not doing this by ourselves. We're organized in such a way that we have an advisory board of philanthropic funders, of which some of them are in the room today, as well as business partners. We've got 5 core partners, each of different steps of the value chain. As you can see, Amcor plastic packaging producer, we've got a couple of big brands in there, and we've got the waste manager, Veolia. And on top of that, we also involve more broadly specific companies and municipalities across the value chain. And then I guess as a final comment, looking at our project and the ambition to accelerate the transition to a circular economy for plastic packaging, we clearly don't have all the answers. We're working together with so many different stakeholders as we realize that it's not us who own the answer, own the solution, but it's about working together and ensuring that by working on the 5 mutually reinforcing building blocks, we actually can achieve the system change from a current model to a future one. In the same spirit, I would like to invite you to share your thoughts or feedback either after this call or later on via email. Thank you very much for your attention.